to the Miscellaneous Debris podcast with me, the Mad Chatter Ryan M.K. Yes, thank you once again for joining me. Whoo, that one got me a little bit, excuse me. Took a little sip of the Gatorade. 1 second. No, I didn't say it any particular way because they sponsor me or anything, but that would be great. Hey, Gatorade, come sponsor me. That would be sweet. Gatorade Zero, to be particular about things. Anyway, once again, thank you for joining me, the Mad Chatter Ryan M.K., on another episode of Miscellaneous Debris. And it's odd. It's Friday the 13th. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm aware there's been other Friday the 13ths before, and yes, this year. But this one just feels a little ominous. I mean, we still got a couple of months to go, in 2020, and well, like a month and a half. And there's still, and Trump's still in the White House for that? I mean, it's getting cold out. COVID is still fucking raging. It's only getting worse. Hospitals being overrunning. That didn't make sense. Sean Connery, we lost him. And then right after that, Alex Trebek. And you know what comes in threes? Is it going to happen today? Friday the 13th? It's just everything right now is crazy. But I mean, there's some bright news. Because, yes, Trump is in the White House right now. But it does appear as though we'll be done with him in due time, early next year. Because Biden's been named the projected winner. Yes. I mean, since last we spoke. I mean, it's been a few days now. But since last we spoke, he was named the winner. And that's great. That is great. I mean, again, not that I think he's like top notch or anything, but let's at least get the fascist out of the White House, shall we? And I'd like to applaud my beautiful state of Colorado. Yes, my home state. Because we went blue, baby. We went blue. Yes, we did. And I couldn't be more proud of my home state. And, it's weird. You could definitely see the difference. I moved to Iowa when I was about 15-ish. Parents got divorced. Some bad stuff. I got expelled from school. It was a whole crazy time. We won't get into that right now. But moved to Iowa. And, there was a large part of me that just never felt like I fit in there. The entire time I was there. And I've never been into politics, so that side of it never really crossed my mind. But, you do see some of the things that are happening, and you see, like, my former state that I lived in, Iowa, went red. And it's like, shit. But then I look back and it makes sense. There is, I think it's the lot of the Midwest, Although, Michigan a surprise, huh? A little bit. But if you think about it, not really. So it's just kind of weird how it all played out. Florida went red because of all the, people talk about the Latino vote, Hispanic vote. Like, if you look, it's a lot of Cubans. And you hear, I'm a big fan of the Dan Le Batard show, and you hear him talk about it all the time because he's Cuban himself, and his parents came from Cuba, and it's like it's lost on a lot of Cubans that Trump is not really equating freedom. He's just saying and that's the problem with those who support him, right? is that they believe all this shit without any sort of evidence. And then when evidence is provided to them, conspiracy. Oh my God. It's just insane. But, you know, I felt great since moving back home a couple of years ago. It's like a free feeling, seeing the mountains all the time, being in areas that I grew up in. Like it's just crazy. It's crazy being back, and it's fantastic. But as of now, I couldn't be more proud because my state went blue, baby, and I love that. I love that. And I do know a lot of people in Iowa. Most of them going blue as well. And so sorry you live in a red state. That sucks. That sucks. My oldest son is still there. And yeah. Just stinks. Just stinks. The divisiveness in this fucking country. Further propagated by, Mr. Trump. Oh, and don't worry. Just because he's lost the election doesn't mean I don't got a little something for him, a little dumping I gotta do on him. Don't think that's not happening, because it is. But not yet. We're going to try and stay on positive things, because it does appear as though, well, again, not that Biden's the, greatest thing in the world, but I do feel between him and Vice President-elect Harris, they will be able to get some good things done. And, fuck, man, hopefully they get enough done that whoever those Republicans, whether it be Trump again, if he's not in prison somehow, or if it's because he is trying to figure out how you can, like, pre-pardon somebody, or how he can pardon himself before he's ever been in trouble for it, if that doesn't scream guilt. But you supporters, you keep love. Oh, man. Okay, I'm done. I'm done for that. Anyway. As I was saying, bright news of Biden, that's great. And also bright news, fucking BattleBots. I've been talking about it. I've been talking about BattleBots is coming back December 3rd. I know, it's fantastic. I am so fucking excited. I'm so fucking excited. I know. It's great. I'd say that deserves some cheering. I'm excited. And I brought this up before because I'm a fan of the show. And some of you may have heard me just mention it in passing or say a few sentences, oh, it's coming back. But I decided I'm going to get really into it for a second. Let y'all know what BattleBots is really about. See, because if you don't know about BB, which is not Big Brother, my wife likes Big Brother. She calls it BB. This is not that BB. This is a different BB. This is the BattleBots BB. And it's a combat sport for robots, basically. Okay? And it works. It works like most sports. They have like a regular season where there's matches every week. They televise it's like a 2-hour show, and they show different matches, and teams build up their rankings, their standings, and then at the end there's a tournament, and there's ranked teams, 1 through 16, whatever. The tournaments they do different things with it. That's what else I like. They change things up a little bit every year to kind of spice it up, make it. I like what they do, the changes that they make every year, for the most part. And then you got the tournament to crown the champion, who gets a giant nut, like a nut that goes on a bolt. Anyway, and so the robots duke it out in an arena, and this thing is 48 by 48 feet of Lexan glass and steel, I believe. The Lexan glass. Lexan glass is bulletproof glass. So it really, to me, the way anytime I see it, to me it looks like plexiglass, right? But it's much stronger. But Lexan glass. Look that stuff up if you want. Anyway, and then in this arena, they have like booby traps. Like in the corners, they have these sledgehammers that come down. Boom! These sledgehammers that come down. And so, obviously, bots are trying to ram each other into there so they get taken down. And then they have these floor saws that come up. I think it's the last, because it's the last little bit of the match. They activate these saws, and I think they're called the kill saws. And they come up from the floor. It's fucking crazy. And then they have the screws. These are on the sides, and these things are great. I've seen lots of bots get pushed up onto these screws, and then the screws take them out of the arena because there's almost like a little ditch going around, and there's spikes on the wall and shit, and there's like a ditch going around, and it's almost like if you can get the bot up in that ditch, they're Dunsky. You know what I mean? So it's interesting. It's interesting. The little booby traps. And then you got the drivers on the outside, right? And because basically each robot is ran by a team of engineers. And one of them drives the bot. And sometimes there's two. And there's lots of different variations depending on weight. If you have a bot that weighs less, you could use two. And sometimes bots will also include like a drone bot. Usually to rain down fire or something. They're never really effective most times. But so you have the team, and you got the driver, and they go bam, head to head. And all matches are 3 minutes. Now it's either determined, the winner is, by a knockout, meaning you took out the other bot, or sometimes it's just the other bot just quit working. Maybe it got too banged up, or we've seen in some rare cases where it's like the bot just fucking stopped working. It's crazy. And so, if there's not a knockout, then it'll go to a judge's decision. And there's always 3 judges, and they'll decide, and they look at different categories like, damage, who did more damage, who had more offense, things like, I'm trying to think, what are some of the other categories they judge on? And so it's good stuff. And again, go through the regular season, the top teams are going to get, the top rankings in the tournament, and you go from there. They go on. Winner takes the giant nut. And there's different types of bots. See, you've got the vertical spinners. Now these bots, they'll have for their weapon like a disc. Sometimes it's a bar, but it spins vertically in the front. Right? Witch Doctor is a really cool vertical spinner. Okay, this thing is awesome. So if you get into BattleBots, watch out for Witch Doctor. And then Bite Force. He's won the last couple of tournaments. This dude is ridiculous. And he's got one of the vertical spinning bars. And that's a hell of a tough bot. Then you got the horizontal spinners. Really, Tombstone is the cream of the crop here. And they basically have usually giant discs, blades, and they spin underneath the front of the bot. And, there's another one that has one on the bottom front and then one on the top back, so that there's a spinner. There's something spinning on both sides, but that bot never seems to do very well. I don't even remember its name. But those seem to be some pretty solid bots. Then you got the full body spinners. These never seem to do too great, but there's been a few of them. Gigabyte is one of them, and this one it's usually like a disc type shape bot, and then they just spin. The whole thing spins, and they're just not the greatest. Now these are the ones I like. They're called the drum bots or the egg beaters. The egg beaters, examples of them are Minotaur and Yeti. Now what they have the drum, and it's what you would think it is. It's like a cylinder. Sometimes they got spikes and shit on them, and this thing goes on the front, and then it spins. All right, so kind of like a vertical spinner, only instead of a bar or a disc or something spinning at the front, you've got this drum spinning. Now, these are fantastic. I love them so much because when they hit and make a really fucking good connection, it destroys the other bot. It's insane. It's so good. But then you have flippers. The flippers. And these always have like a nice wedge in the front to try and get under their opponent, under the bot, and then flip it in the air. And Bronco's really the top-notch one of those. That thing can just flip. I think it flipped. I think they showed it flipping like a washer one time. Like, or a dry, like washer and dryer. Washer. That kind of washer. Then you got hammer bots. The hammer comes down. Saw bots have a saw, obviously. Crushers are like pincers that, crush you. And they try and do damage that way. Usually these are kind of animal type ones. Kraken, that's one of the crusher bots. Even though it looks like a crocodile, really, not a kraken. But what else? To each their own. To each their own. So that's my little rundown of BattleBots, and I kind of bring that up because I do have an idea. An idea for something new. Yeah. As I was saying, got an idea for a bit of a new segment. Nothing crazy, but I was like, I want to do a little bit of a sports corner, right? But not really your typical sports corner. I'm not going to sit here and do some sports center type bullshit or anything like that. No. I'm thinking that once BattleBots start, that'll be a big feature in the sports corner, right? And then also New Japan Pro Wrestling. That's right. Because if you have listened to the show, you've heard me bring this up before, I'm sure. And sometimes I talk a little bit about it. Sometimes I just mention it. Yeah. But you probably heard about this too, just like with the BattleBots. And I thought I'd get a little rundown of this going as well. Because I really do want to get something started where I can talk about some of this sports-related stuff and kind of have it in an area instead of trying to throw it in places, right? And I figure I already talk football, right? And if you're into fantasy football, please check out my Fantasy Madness podcast. That's right. Same places you find this, which I don't think I mentioned at the top of the pod, at RMK Madness on Twitter and Instagram. Yes. But if you're into football, you can check that stuff out. I also do some writing for playerprofiler.com. You can check out my infirmary report every week. Dig into the injury news of the NFL world. So, yes, if you're into football. But say, I don't want to talk about football here then. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean I don't want to talk some New Japan Pro Wrestling every once in a while. Just a little bit. Or some BattleBots once that starts. That's good. That's technically a sport. So I'm thinking a bit of a sports corner type thing. But different. But just different than, again, not some sports center type shit. So we'll chat BattleBots when it gets there. But for now, ooh, yeah, some New Japan Pro Wrestling. Oh, no, I can't do it. Let's give it the proper, not the, ooh, yeah, since we're going to talk some wrestling. I don't even know where the goddamn thing went. It was right here, and now it's gone. I had it. What a disaster. I did have it somewhere. Where'd it go? Oh, it's right there.
Ooh, I passed it. Yeah.
Passed it several times, and then I talked.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Sorry, that's not getting edited out or anything, and just leave that in. I like to have full transparency. That's right. And if I mess up, I want to laugh at it. I'm not gonna. Right. I also don't want to go through and have to edit. That's true. I mean, if you're gonna put me on the spot. But speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling, I know I've mentioned it quite a bit. It's a big passion of mine. I love me some New Japan Pro Wrestling. I love pro wrestling in general. You know, it gets a lot of hate out there. People say fake. And man, pro wrestlers hate that shit. And I do too. It's disrespectful. Like, have you seen what these guys do? And people will point to UFC, and I'm like, yeah. And they're really hurting each other. And then sometimes the wrestlers hurt each other too. But I don't understand the hatred of it. It's not your thing, fine. But it really is a kind of like a fight dance, you know, because it's almost because it is fighting to an extent, but it's also telling a story. Like, that's one of the main aspects of professional wrestling is the storytelling in the ring. That the wrestlers, I mean, I guess it is a little bit hard to explain unless you're a diehard fan, but you know, pro wrestling fan in general, just the idea of storytelling in the ring. But you see ebbs and flows during a match. And you can see when two wrestlers have really got to go. They've got, you know, the chemistry with the physical aspect and then the storytelling aspect. If you're looking at New Japan Pro Wrestling, some of the best matches ever. Even if you're not into New Japan Pro Wrestling, if you like pro wrestling in general, you might have heard of Omega versus Okada. Oh, man. A trilogy of unbelievable matches. One of them went a full hour. And if you're sitting there going, you're telling me, Mr. Chatter, that you fucking sat for a goddamn hour and watched two people wrestle? Yeah. And I didn't think before that that was something I could do, even loving wrestling like I did. I didn't think it was possible. But there I was, on the edge of my seat for almost every fucking second of that 60 minutes. That's the power of wrestling, if you're into it. Some people aren't. I've sent my brother, Tyson. He's never really been into it, right? And this is several years ago when I first got into New Japan. It took me a couple of years to actually send him some stuff, but at one point I did, and I'm like, this is some of the best wrestling you're ever going to see. If you don't like this, you're right. It's not for you. And he's like, yeah, it's just, yeah, to me it's the same stuff. And I'm like, it's so much different than WWE. But it's the same stuff, you know, I'd just rather watch UFC. Okay, well, that's you. Me personally, I just have a hard time. It's like even in football, hockey, when a dude gets really drilled, I can remember being young going, oh, did you see that fucking crazy hit? And nowadays, I see that, and I'm like, oh my God damn it, I hope his brain's okay. I don't know. Something to do with growing up, maybe? I don't know. No, because a lot of older people who still like to see people get smashed, if you know what I mean. But, again, it's a beautiful thing if you can get into it. But if you're not into it, don't hate on it. Fake? Come on. Predetermined, I get, right? Those dudes beat the shit out of each other a bit. And they go hard, man. Like, it's, especially when you look at New Japan. And I can understand. For some people, they haven't seen something like New Japan. It's different. You know, it's better, in my opinion. It's just, there's more wrestling, there's more action, less of the soap opera element to it, you know, the drama. There's longer matches. There's better moves, the things people do in New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's harder hitting. I mean, it looks more realistic. And then they have factions. It's like one of the bedrocks of New Japan Pro Wrestling is these different factions. You have Chaos. Leader of Chaos is Kazuchika Okada. He is the number one wrestler in the company. Well, the top wrestler doesn't have the belts right now, though. So if you're looking at the top guy, we'll get to him in a second as far as belts concerned, top guy. And there's some really good people in his group. Dude named Tomohiro Ishii, the Stone Pitbull. Dude looks like a pitbull, too. No shit. Haruki Goto, Toru Yano's kind of the clown. Yano's a bit of the clown, but he's fucking great. Hilarious. Love his matches. He's not for everybody. Some people don't like him so much. He's that goofier side of pro wrestling. But I like that shit thrown in. I like that shit thrown in. I like that's one of the aspects of pro wrestling that I do enjoy. That some people dislike. But that's okay. You've got the Empire, led by Will Ospreay, who broke off from the aforementioned Chaos. Suzuki-gun, leader of that is Minoru Suzuki, this crazy fucking old bastard, and he's just it looks like there's just fucking it looks like he's got a shaved head for the most part, right? It's shaved down, and then there's shaved to the skin, just little. Sometimes it's like they're designed, but I swear sometimes it's like it just takes the fucking clippers and just goes bang, bang, and just randomly all over his fucking head. He's a crazy asshole dude. There's some good dudes in that faction. The Masked El Desperado. Zack Sabre Jr., this British dude who's tall and lanky and does some of the most insane maneuvers you will ever see. When it comes to grappling and, why can't I think of it? The techniques that you, the holds, he's good at holds, but that's not what I'm looking for. When you're trying to make someone tap out those moves. I can't, it's like brain fart. That could be the weed. Could be the weed. I'm not going to lie. But Zack Sabre Jr. Submissions. That's what I'm fucking looking for. That goddamn word. But king of the submissions, that dude, Zack Sabre Jr. Zack Sabre Jr. And then you got Bullet Club. This is where a lot of the American dudes hang out. They're pretty badass. They always have. If you're into WWE wrestling at all, really the founder of Bullet Club, you would know as Finn Balor. But in New Japan, he was known as Prince Devitt. And he founded Bullet Club, and he was the OG leader of them. And then he went to WWE. And AJ Styles came in, took over Bullet Club. When AJ Styles left, Kenny Omega took over Bullet Club. So that's kind of a bit of the history of Bullet Club, but always been some top dudes that eventually return to the United States and do their thing. And then you got Los Ingobernables de Japón, which is my favorite group. And they're led by Tetsuya Naito, who is currently the double champion, the Intercontinental and World Heavyweight Champion. That's right. My guys. They got a dude named Shingo Takagi in this group, the Dragon. Hiromu Takahashi. He's got like some pink in his hair. He carries around this stuffed cat, right? His name is Daryl, the cat. He's got a badass Suicidal Tendencies jacket that he fucking wears. He's amazing. He's amazing. So, and again, I mentioned Finn Balor, AJ Styles. I mean, Chris Jericho's competed in New Japan. Shinsuke Nakamura was the original leader of Chaos, the first faction that I mentioned. And then he went to WWE. Blah, 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 blah. That's when Okada took over as the leader of Chaos, when Shinsuke Nakamura went to WWE. And you see these I mean, Styles does well for himself, but Balor's been up and down. Nakamura, he doesn't do a whole lot. Some of the top guys from New Japan are being just wasted in WWE. Jon Moxley was one of the more recent ones. After leaving WWE, he went straight to New Japan. That was the first fucking thing he did. I mean, so a lot of names have competed. Back in the day, Brock Lesnar. He's competed. Hulk Hogan competed in New Japan. Yeah. Lots of names. Lots of big names along the way. And they just finished their G1 Climax tourney. And this thing is amazing. It's like the greatest several weeks of wrestling. And it's usually a few days on, couple days off, few days on. But basically, it's a round robin tournament, 20 wrestlers, 2 blocks. So you got the A block, the B block, 10 on each side. So each wrestler has to wrestle every other wrestler in the block one time. And you get 2 points for a win, 1 for a draw, 0 for a loss. And the point leaders from each block at the end of the tourney face off for a briefcase. And in that briefcase is a contract. That's right. Very similar to WWE. I'm not sure which came first, the contract in New Japan. I think it might have been WWE with the Money in the Bank. That was first, I believe. I'll give it some credit. I'll give credit where credit's due. I will. You know, y'all know my feelings on WWE. Anyway. So, they get this contract that, of course, you fight. It's a contract to fight the world champion. And this year, Kota Ibushi, he's not really in a faction. There's a handful of good guys that aren't really in a faction. They just kind of fly solo. And usually if there's like tag matches and stuff, these guys will band together, basically. And so Kota Ibushi then goes on, because he has a match where he has to put the briefcase on the line, and he loses the briefcase. First person to do it. Insanity. Now it looks like he may still get a title shot, but we'll see. But he lost the damn briefcase. First fucking person. And then coming up, they got the Best of the Super Junior tournament and World Tag League tournament going on at the same time, which normally doesn't happen. But the craziness of the year, the pandemic and all that, I mean, it hit Japan too. So shit's changed up. And these are both also round robin tournaments. And they're going to be fun as that. And Super Junior, Best of the Super Junior, that's basically the juniors are more the lightweights, right? And so this is kind of like the G1 Climax tournament for the juniors. And then World Tag League is kind of like the G1 tournament for the tag teams. So it's pretty awesome, pretty exciting stuff. And then that all leads into December, and then they'll have a little bit of a break before the show of shows, the real show of shows, New Japan's version of WrestleMania, Wrestle Kingdom. And this year, just as last year, which was the debut year for it, they're doing 2 days, and it's going to be fantastic. Such good stuff. Honestly, if you just like to be entertained, it's so much fun. This is so much. And there's some people that think it's a little bit of a down year, and I'm like, well, yeah. Look at the situation around the world. Everything's different. Everything's struggling a little bit, you know? So give it a break. Just chillax. Tranquilo, as Tetsuya, I totally fucked that up. Let's try that again. So, as Tetsuya Naito would say, tranquilo. That's right. Tranquilo. But yes. So hopefully that'll be a great way to kick off 21. Like, hey, Trump's almost out of here, and we got Wrestle Kingdom. Fucking awesome. Fucking awesome.
May I please have your attention? The store will be closing in 5 minutes.
That's right. That's right. It's about that time to wrap things up here on Miscellaneous Debris. But before we go, I'd first like to say, I really hope that, well, out of the handful of listeners that actually listen to this, and I appreciate you all, I just don't assume to have a ton, to be honest. And we're still growing. We're still growing. We're still working on it. Don't worry, peeps. We got this, madcaps. We're good. But for those of you, I would hope like to hope that you take something from what I spoke about with BattleBot's New Japan Pro Wrestling. If anything, hey, there's a lot of shit going on in the world. We need a little bit of break time. And I really am serious about this sports corner thing. Like, doing it this kind of way. Let's talk about sports shit nobody else is going to talk about. BattleBots. New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think it's great. So, I hope you join me along the way, and I hope, some of you at least get into one or the other. That would be cool. Because I find both highly entertaining, and I love them very much. Very, very much, as far as entertainment goes. And then also, as we mentioned previously, with Biden pretty much wrapping up the election, that means that Trump is on his way out. Now, he's going to do everything he can along the way to keep that from happening. But it's not going to. And that kind of makes it extra funny that that he put so much effort into, suppressing the vote and trying to rig the election, basically. He put a lot of effort in trying to have the election play in his favor. And yet he still lost. And he's got no evidence. Now, he can trot out whatever numbers he wants, so can his allies, but when it comes to what they're saying in court, baby, they got nothing. So we got to, dump a little bit on Trump, right, before he heads out. So
You suck, you jackass.
that's right. And this will be the last one for a while, because let's face it, he's still got a couple months left. He could do all sorts of crazy shit. I mean, aside from he's going to need money. So aside from selling nuclear codes and, state secrets, to Russia or somewhere for money, who knows what kind of crazy shit he'll fucking do. I mean, I laugh, but put it past him? So it could be interesting last couple of months. But as he continues to claim fraud and then has no evidence, he continues to do that. And meanwhile, the head chairperson of the the head election administrator called the act shameful that he's carrying on about election fraud, which I guess you would expect the man to say. But I guess my point with this is he's going to continue this. That's what his mindset is going to be throughout all this. What about the stimulus? What about the pandemic that's raging? Oh, I forgot. According to him, we're rounding the corner. He was saying that shit before the election. Is he going to continue to say that shit now, or is he just not give a shit? Because I haven't heard a fucking peep from him since the election, but about the election. And there's other shit going on in the world. We're rounding the corner. Okay. We've got it labeled to an uncontrolled spread is where we're at now. And hospitals across the country being overrun. See, the problem is that when COVID first hit, it was hitting certain parts of the country, right? Hit New York, really bad, California. It was hitting different parts of the country. Remember, Florida Governor DeSantis, bitch. Remember him on camera bragging about how good of a job Florida did, and then they were the worst. It started hitting different parts of the country, and there's some parts of the country that really haven't got hit extremely hard yet. And now it's happening everywhere. And it's going to get bad everywhere. So do what you can, despite what the president says about us rounding the corner. And we got to try and figure out how to get through this, considering a again, he's probably too busy concentrating on trying to fight the election results to actually give a shit about working on a stimulus, for the people. Oh, goodness gracious. It just blows my mind that people still rooted for this asshole. And, I get it. You find there's two parties. You're a Republican. Let's say neither candidate's that great. You go with the Republican. But in this case, if you can't see what he's about in the past 4 years, you are either ignorant, not paying enough attention, just voting red, one of those things, or you're a fucking asshole just like him, right? And again, I'm no Democrat. I'm no Republican. I hate the two-party system. I don't even like politicians. I wouldn't trust them as far as I could throw them. But I always vote for what I would consider the lesser of two evils, and there is a very clear choice in this election. It wasn't so clear to me last time versus Hillary. And though I do not believe Biden to be perfect, he's far better than Trump. Because he's utterly failed and conned half the U.S. That's what he's done the past 4 years. Show me the policies that has helped make our country better. Maybe a few here and there. Overall, what's he done? There's been chaos in the streets. He's further divided the nation. He's essentially, in ways, supported white supremacist groups. And really, I'm starting to despise Republicans in general because they're fucking hypocritical. On one hand, they'll tell you the importance of a baby's life, of every life, right? Of every life. But then they'll say, go ahead and shoot looters. Because we value property over people. Dumb motherfuckers. Trump, his allies, majority of the Republicans, they don't care about COVID. They don't care about the climate. Another 4 years? And so many of his followers buy into the real fake news, if that makes any sense. And their minds are poisoned with conspiracy theories. Because everything is one now. But if it holds true and Biden takes office, then that means there's light at the end of the tunnel. He's not going to change everything overnight, but hopefully he can do well enough to turn some things around, and whatever lunatic the Republicans put across from him in 4 years, hopefully he gets them too. So anyway, we'll go ahead and close up shop. That's what I got. That's what I got for Trump and the Trumpers. And I would say, hey, you guys are still sitting here bitching about the election. Didn't some people have some questions about the election, 4 years ago? And what did you say to them? No one cares about your feelings. And, I know I've mentioned this before, but it just blows my mind. Quit crying. Quit crying, fuckers. You lost. Because you fucking lose. I know you got a big fucking boner because you won 4 years ago. But history says you pretty much lose. And you did again. So fuck off. That's what I... For the rest of us, we'll, try not to go crazy the next couple of months until we actually see his ass ripped from the White House. It'll be so fantastic. Okay. Yes. All right. Let's get out of here. Food and sleep. That's always my excuse. Food and sleep. I need some food and sleep. Thank you once again for joining me. I very much appreciate it. I really do. You can always check out all of my content, all my stuff on Twitter, on Instagram, at RMKMadness, and of course on the YouTubes. And I have been rather silent on the social medias of lately, not doing a whole lot, but I'll get back to it. It's been a long couple of weeks. Well, maybe it's been about 3 weeks now. Maybe it's been a long few weeks. And it's just been, but we're going to start slowing down a little bit. And let's face it, we all need to be slowing down a little bit. This winter's going to be crazy. The end of 2020, yes. And it begins with Friday the 13th of November in 2020. Yes, yes. So make sure, as always, to stay safe, stay vigilant, stay mad, because all the best of us are. And much love to you all. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful weekend. That's right. Until next time, ta-ta for now. Later!